Welcome to Andy Staples On3. Happy New Year's Eve. I know you're probably about getting ready to celebrate. Hopefully you're doing it the right way and hanging out at home, because remember, New Year's Eve is amateur hour when you go out. It is like going to the mall and shopping for all your Christmas presents on Christmas Eve. Don't bother. Stay home, watch this show, get yourself ready for the college football playoff. That's what you need to be doing. 2 semifinal games on Monday, the Rose Bowl, the Sugar Bowl. And I got to tell you, the 10th season of the 4-team CFP is the first one I felt like where all 4 teams in the playoff can actually win the whole thing. We're going into 2 games where the highest spread is 4.5 points. And if you look at the individual matchups, if you put out all the permutations, it feels like all 4 teams have a chance. And I don't remember that happening since this thing got rolling in 2014. So very excited about that. But before we get to talking about that, and we are going to preview both of those games. Richard Johnson from Sports Illustrated and the Split Zone Duo podcast joins us to talk Bama, Michigan, and Texas, Washington. But before we do that, let's figure out how we got here. Because we go back to the beginning of the season. We were talking about a Georgia three-peat. Now, we just watched Georgia stomp on Florida State in the Orange Bowl. And it's interesting because we talked about this on the show on Saturday. The question that everyone was asking after Florida State was excluded from the playoff was, did the committee get it right with reference to Florida State? There weren't a lot of people asking, did the committee get it right with reference to Georgia? And here's the thing. They weren't going to be able to get everybody in. We know that it's a 4-team playoff. It will be a 12-team next year. But I think the way Georgia played further underscored the need to expand the thing. Because if you look at Georgia, they absolutely could win this whole thing. If they were in a tournament, if you subbed out one of the 4 teams that's in for Georgia, they could easily win this whole thing. And they've got 1 loss. Their loss is to a better team than the other team's losses are to, except maybe Alabama, Texas. So what did that show? Did that show that Georgia didn't deserve to be the national champion? No. It showed that the system was pretty bad, needed to be changed, and it's going to be changed. But right now we got these 2 matchups, and they are pretty spectacular. Alabama, Michigan in the Rose Bowl, 2 storied name brand programs, 2 iconic coaches in Nick Saban and Jim Harbaugh. And then Texas and Washington in the Sugar Bowl, 2 incredibly fun offenses, 2 coaches that could be doing this for a while in Kalen DeBoer and Steve Sarkisian. I think this is going to be, hopefully, the best night of semifinals that we've seen. Last year's was the best one so far. The Georgia-Ohio State Peach Bowl and the Michigan TCU Fiesta Bowl, those were the 2 most interesting games together in the semis. I hope this surpasses that, and then you get a championship game that is worthy of those 2 games, because it's never been a match. You've gotten these good championship games that came from lopsided semifinals. You had the 2 great semifinals last year and the horrifically lopsided championship game. So I'm hoping we get all good here as we usher the 4-team playoff into retirement. But let's think about the beginning of the season. We were talking about Georgia winning a 3rd straight national title. Alabama goes to SEC Media Days, and the Tide are acting like they're the hunter and not the hunted. And Nick Saban seems pretty happy. And the thing is that carried through the whole season, even after they lost to Texas. Nick Saban seemed pretty happy, and now we keep wondering, does it mean he's retiring? What's going on? I think he just likes having a team that isn't the prohibitive favorite. He likes the challenge of leading a team from a different place into a potential national title. This one is very similar to the 2015 team that lost to Ole Miss in Game 3 of that year, where they got better and better. They figured out their quarterback situation. It was similar there. They didn't quite have their quarterback situation nailed down. This one is player-led. That one was very player-led. That team was led more by defensive linemen. This one, the bulk of the leaders seem to be in the secondary, but very similar. Michigan has had this odyssey of a season. Jim Harbaugh didn't coach 6 out of 13 games. 6. Remember, he was suspended for Cheeseburger Gate. The school self-imposed a 3-game suspension on him to kick things off. Then you had the signal stealing, the Connor Stallions, all of that stuff. He's only coached 7 games this year, but that team has been more together than any of these teams we've seen. And I think they are better prepared than the last two as they get into the playoff, because I think they've been through a lot, and you can talk about their definition of adversity and what that means, but it has been adverse for them, and that matters. They've gotten through that. They've gotten over that. They've won games without Jim Harbaugh. They've figured out how to win games, like when Zach Zinter goes down in the Ohio State game. They've figured it out. And I think this is a team that is better prepared to face what it's going to face in the semifinal. Texas, beginning of the season, we were saying, okay, this is finally a talented Texas team that the end result of the talent matches the beginning recruiting rankings, because they hadn't been developing NFL players. Now they are. The ones that are coming in, they're highly rated. Some of these guys are going to go out very highly rated, and that was not the case in the past few years. And then could Texas overcome those games where they were supposed to win but didn't have it that day? Kansas State, Iowa State this year, those were those games. They won those games. Yes, they lost to Oklahoma, but we've seen in the 14 playoff era, you can drop a game and still win the national title. But the Texas teams of old would have lost to Kansas State or would have lost to Iowa State and wouldn't be here. And that's the difference. Washington, meanwhile, starts the season as one of many contenders in what looked like a very deep Pac-12. And I think it was a very deep Pac-12. We thought that USC was going to be better with Caleb Williams coming back. That didn't happen. But Oregon was about as good as we thought they were going to be. Washington was just better. And Washington beats Oregon the first time, still didn't get that respect. Goes into the second Oregon game, the Pac-12 championship game, as a more than a touchdown underdog, and then says, look, we're here. If you've heard Braylon Trice this week, he's been very adamant that people are sleeping on Washington. They've not respected the Huskies all season, and that the Huskies are more physical, tougher than they've looked. I think if you look at the Pac-12 championship game, it proves that. It shows that. They're a great matchup for Texas. This is going to be all kinds of fun. So let's get ready. Plus, you got other games going on. Nico Iamaleava making his debut as a starter for Tennessee in the Citrus Bowl. These are things that the Vol fans have been waiting for 2 years now, since Nico started getting recruited. This is the last day of full college football for us for the 2023 season. Let's soak it in. Let's savor it. It's going to be fun. And one way to make it even a little more fun is you download that Prize Picks app. It is America's #1 daily fantasy app. Makes daily fantasy so easy. I had a great weekend on Prize Picks. I've told you about some of my tougher beats, but I have had a very good weekend. I said the Alamo Bowl would be a lot of more, that Noah Fafita, the Arizona quarterback, and Jackson Arnold, the freshman, taking over at Oklahoma, that they'd have big games. They did. And they both won me my entry. And then also I went Rocco Becht in the Liberty Bowl. Iowa State didn't win, but Rocco had himself a game. And then Luther Burden and Trey Harris, the Missouri and Ole Miss receivers, in their bowl games, well, they took care of business too. So I did pretty well. You can also take a look at the entries for Monday. There's a lot of fun entries on Monday. Here's one to think about. The combo rushing or receiving TDs. A.D. Mitchell for Texas, 0.5 touchdowns. So if you go more than 0.5 touchdowns, you're saying A.D. Mitchell is going to score a touchdown. Remember, A.D. Mitchell transferred from Georgia to Texas. A.D. Mitchell has 4 career playoff touchdowns. He's played in 4 career playoff games. He has a touchdown in every one. So that one feels pretty good. You've also got all your passing yardage numbers for the quarterbacks in these games. And hey, if you want to celebrate the beginning of Nico Mania, 177.5 passing yards. And I think that's a low number. Well, he's playing Iowa in the Citrus Bowl. The Iowa defense tends to make all quarterbacks look pretty bad. So if Nico can surpass that, 1, he may lead his team to a win, and 2, he may help you out on your Prize Picks entry. So you pick a couple entries, you pick 2 squares, you pick 3 squares, 4 squares, 5 squares. The more squares you pick, the more you can increase the payout. It's a lot of fun. Go to the Prize Picks app, download, use the code Andy, and they will match your first deposit up to $100. So you deposit $100, They match you 100. You deposit 50. They match you 50. The code is Andy. Prize Picks. Give yourself some more fun on Monday as you watch all these games. All right, it is time to talk semifinals. Richard Johnson, my friend from Sports Illustrated, known him a long time. Grew up in Gainesville, Florida. So in the era he grew up, he has not watched a lot of championship football locally, but he's covered some really good games here the last few years. He was at both of Michigan's semifinals the last 2 years. He has some really interesting thoughts on how different the Wolverines are, or the same, this year versus those last 2 years, because I think that's the question. How different is Michigan going to be than the team we saw in the playoff the last couple of years? Here's Richard. Welcome back to the rocking chairs here in Granddad's Lounge.
I like it. These are pretty good. This is
unbelievable. Richard Johnson, Split Zone Duo Podcast, Sports Illustrated. It's funny how we go with the podcast first now. That's how we do it now.
Hey, man, it's about branding.
It is.
It's about personal branding.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you guys do an amazing job at Split Zone Duo. Sports Illustrated, I might have written some stuff there back in the day.
A place you're familiar with.
Yeah, exactly. So we were having a discussion at Media Day, and I wanted to continue this on camera because I thought it was a lot of fun. We were talking about Jim Harbaugh and Nick Saban and kind of their different mentalities, because we'd been standing there as Nick Saban's getting interviewed, and it was sort of the tail end of the hour of Nick Saban getting interviewed at Media Day, and he's actually being pretty fun because there weren't many people around. He's just sort of, he's telling stories about when he coached LSU, and
he actually answered a hypothetical question.
Oh yes, the would you kick with Jaheim Otis if you had no kickers?
He answered a hypothetical question, which is something he hates more than anything in the world.
Jaheim Otis is a 330-pound nose tackle, by the way, who can apparently kick a 40-yard field goal.
Athlete.
Was a kicker in high school. So, yeah. So we had that. Nick Saban was talking about mentality. Jake Butt, actually, former Michigan tight end, works for the Big Ten Network, came up and asked Nick Saban a question about how do you get from being a great team to an elite team to a championship team. And Nick Saban's like, they all have the same players. All three of those types of teams have the same players. It's mindset. It's how do you handle every day? How do you go about your business? And that's what you started, you mentioning Michigan the last 2 years in the playoff. And I do wonder, like, does Michigan have that kind of mindset that we know we've seen from Alabama over the years, that it doesn't matter which game it is, they're going to kind of come out and play the same way no matter what? Yeah,
I think with Michigan, the common theme of the last two playoff semifinals, and I was at both, was out there with the teams in Miami and in Phoenix for both of those bowl weeks. The common theme is hubris with Michigan. Michigan has had hubris about the team that they think they are, thought they were in those two games, coming into them. Against Georgia, it was the offensive line. It was the run the damn ball T-shirt. They just won the Joe Moore Award. They had heard all the stuff about Georgia, and they didn't think it mattered, and they thought their Big Ten toughness was going to win out. And then we saw what happened, and both of us will never forget that play where Trayvon Walker jacks up that Michigan left tackle, and you know what I mean. And you remember it's just a different deal.
Well, and that was the best collection of defensive line talent that we might ever see in college football.
Sure.
And I think that, so I don't ding Jim Harbaugh for losing that game.
But Andy,
they should have beaten TCU.
That's the thing.
Yeah, they're better than TCU.
If it was a hubris that expressed itself physically in the Georgia game, it's a hubris that expressed itself mentally against TCU.
Yeah.
Because they were not able to adjust to what TCU threw them. They were not able to figure out, particularly on offense, when they were trying to run the ball, how to effectively block TCU. And it's not a physical thing. Because we saw the next week against Georgia, they can be run over.
Yes.
But Michigan was not able to mentally get to a place where they were able to figure out the most effective way to be in the best place to block TCU, and they were not able to execute their full offense.
Well, and you wonder if that's changed, because I talked to a lot of people about the mindset of Alabama's players, talked to people who helped kind of create the architecture of it, and it's very much you're only thinking about this play. It's very cliche, the one play at a time, all that stuff, but they've somehow managed to get 18 to 22-year-olds to think that way, which is very difficult, and I think that's sort of one of Saban's superpowers. with Jim Harbaugh, you don't he doesn't reveal much. He doesn't give us much in these, so we don't really know what they're telling these guys in terms of how to prepare mentally for these games. But I do feel like Michigan feels more results oriented. Like, we got to win.
Yeah, because when you get here, right? First of all, it may surprise you, Andy. They are the number one team in the country, by the way.
They are. And they're the favorite in this game.
Yeah, and they are the favorite by a slim margin, but they are the favorite in this game. You know, I think there is a lot more urgency involved about this game for them than Alabama. I don't want to say Alabama's happy to be here. Alabama's never happy to be in this spot or just happy to be in this spot. But they expect to be here because of their consistency, all this kind of stuff. For Michigan, this is now the third time they've done this, and it's time for you to pay this off. You've made beating Ohio State routine,
yes.
Right? You've slayed that Leviathan. You've conquered that demon, both mentally and physically. So okay, that's kind of old hat. But now this is the next level you need to kick on to. And look, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the, I think, sense of urgency of the Michigan versus everybody nature of this entire season, proving naysayers and doubters wrong, and
Harbaugh.
Harbaugh stuff. There is a, I don't want to say a last dance aspect to it, but we know that he told.
It definitely feels that way.
We know that he told players on this team, come back, let's do it one more time.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so coming into the season, there was a last dance kind of aspect to it, and we're going to do this one more time kind of thing. But you think about the upcoming specter of NCAA sanctions, potentially going to the
Black
NFL.
Monday in the NFL coming up. Yeah, I mean, that's – and the thing with Harbaugh – the NCAA stuff adds more urgency to it, adds more, okay, this might happen. Things might have to be different next year, whether you want them to or not. But the NFL piece of it, and this is, I was laughing at Joey Molinaro, the comic, who does the impressions of Saban and Harbaugh, had a great clip that he made this weekend where he does the impression of Saban talking to Harbaugh. And Harbaugh is talking trash to Saban because Saban wasn't successful in the NFL, but Harbaugh was. And that's the part I keep coming back to, like with the jobs that are going to be open in the NFL and the amount of them and the level of them and the quarterbacks who are going to be on those teams. Like if you're Jim Harbaugh, you're like, ooh, this is the time.
Yeah, and look, it's no secret around. I mean, it's no secret that he wants to go back to the NFL.
Yeah.
I think we all know that. We all understand that. I mean, there's going to be a line from San Diego to Los Angeles for that Chargers
to
job,
Chicago.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, and you know, who knows? Maybe the Cowboys job comes open if McCarthy and the Cowboys flame out. You know, Bears. We'll see if Kevin Warren signs off on such a thing, but Bears. You know, Washington. You know, there are going to be very attractive jobs in this cycle. New England, and he for the idiosyncrasies, for the eccentricities, the guy wins.
Yes.
And the guy has won in the NFL, and it's so rare. Like when the Jaguars got Doug Peterson, it's so rare to be able to get a Super Bowl winning head coach or Super Bowl adjacent head coach, which Jim Harbaugh is. It's so rare to get those on the open market. And he, I wouldn't say on the open market, but he's at least on the market because he hasn't signed a contract that says he won't be contacted by the NFL, which Michigan would sure love him to sign.
Yeah. They pay him more than anybody else in the Big Ten, maybe more than anybody else in college football. Now, here's the thing about that mental aspect of it. I do think what has happened with this team this year, all of it, him being suspended early in the season, the sign-stealing accusations, the suspension of him as they're landing at Penn State. You and I were standing at the airport in State College. Like, all of that feels like it has, I don't know, battle test is the wrong word, but it has definitely molded this team. And I don't think there's much you can throw at them now in game that's going to surprise. They're not going to freak out. They're not like, oh my God, what do we do now? Like, they seem like they are built to deal with things as they come, whereas maybe that team that played TCU last year wasn't.
Well, there's one thing we don't know about them, and what happens when they're down.
Yeah.
We do not know what happens when they're down, what happens when they may have to press, all that kind of stuff. But yes, there's not, and I think that coaches so often have to try to find, I mean, Saban even talks about it, have to try to find ways to manufacture, doubt, right?
Yes.
Like I remember, God, this was the national championship game when they played Clemson in Tampa. And I remember I actually was in Bama's team hotel and I snuck down to their meeting room area, and they were these like obviously fake headlines, right?
Yeah.
Like nobody believes in you and the dynasty's dead and all that kind of stuff. You always find a way to manufacture
I talked to
this.
somebody who was a GA on the Florida staff when they played Ohio State in the national championship game. And remember, everybody was saying Ohio State was going to beat Florida, so they didn't even have to fake it. But he said that Urban Meyer had them fake stuff to make it even worse, so that the players would just be so fired up.
Even worse, the Kirk Herbstreit going on College Game Day and saying they had no chance.
Exactly.
But there's so many times when coaches have to manufacture doubt and all this kind of stuff. But that has not happened this season.
Yeah.
Like, you literally gave them external adversity. And I know, we don't love that word because it paints a broad brush over a lot of things, but it's been there.
Right.
Like, you've got...
It doesn't matter how I feel about it, you feel about it, anybody watching feels about it. It matters how the players feel about it, and they feel like those were adverse conditions.
The governing body of their conference and the sport took their coach away from them.
Correct.
For multiple games.
Yes.
I mean, that is what happened.
Yes.
And so if you want a Michigan versus everybody, I mean, that's it. Like, they feel it's us versus everybody.
It's earned at this point.
Yes.
And so that I'm excited to see that. I thought both teams at Media Day were very loose. I thought everybody feels pretty good going into this game. Like and the Alabama players, you can tell, like, if you had given them truth serum after they lost to Texas, they did not think they were going to be here. They definitely feel like they've grown into it. You're going to hear from Kadyn Proctor in this episode, the freshman offensive tackle. And that guy, I mean, he's really open about what he went through. Yeah. Like, he was getting his ass kicked by grown men early in the season. And this is a guy who's 370 pounds. Like, he's never gotten his ass kicked in his life.
Yeah.
And he's trying to deal with that. But then you hear him talk about how he felt going into the Georgia game, and you're like, okay, you figured it out.
I think what Bama is going through this year is, in my opinion, the beauty of a bigger SEC and Big Ten with more like competition and a 12-team playoff.
Yes.
Alabama, and okay, Florida State fans, I hear you. But Alabama has been able to grow over the course of the season and still get into the dance.
We're going to see more teams like this when the 12-team playoff starts. There are probably going to be 3 teams in the field that are like this, that had something bad happen at the beginning of the season and then sort of put it all together as they can. And they're the ones you're not going to want to play.
And that's allowed. That should happen.
Yeah.
That's what happens in the NFL.
Yes.
Like, we don't just leave teams because they lose in September. And I think that, to me, is the beauty about the new 12-team system and what I can't wait for, because I can't wait for, like Utah last year, for instance.
Yes.
Nobody wanted to play that Utah team
Oh,
last
God, at
year.
the end of the season? Yeah.
But we forgot about them in September because they clunked through September. And so, college football, I think, in general, has always been obsessed with kind of the undefeated champion. And I believe it was Kevin Steele yesterday, Alabama's defensive coordinator, who said Alabama's only been undefeated, twice?
Twice, yeah.
In Nick Saban's run.
Yeah.
They've only been undefeated twice.
2020. That's it. Yeah, and that, I think Saban's favorite teams are the ones that did grow.
100%.
2015 is his favorite national champion. I think if you go back, because I remember that season when they lost to Ole Miss. Remember that they weren't sure Jacob Coker was their guy. They started Cooper Bateman in the Ole Miss game. They bring in Coker. They still end up losing, but they realize, okay, we found our quarterback. And then they grew as they went. And that was very similar to this team, very player-led, and very player-led on the defensive side of the ball specifically. More in the secondary this year and on the D-line that year, but it's the vibes are very similar.
Yeah, I can't remember who was talking about it. I believe yesterday. It might have been Kool-Aid McKinstry. Apologies. But he was talking about having a players-led meeting after that Texas game.
Yeah.
And, players-led meetings, those often signal,
big trouble.
Those are often signs of trouble. But no, Alabama obviously has been able to congeal and come together and grow over the course of the season.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this game because I do think J.J. McCarthy talking about being healthy, if he's really, truly healthy and he can move around, I think that negates some of the issues that Michigan had in terms of pass protection toward the end of the season. Now, obviously, Zach Zinter is not good for them, but Trente Jones has looked fine at right tackle, and it feels like the moves they had to make actually will work. And I don't know that they're going to be able to just dominate Alabama up front, but I do think they can play well enough that McCarthy's going to be able to squeeze off some passes. Now, can the receivers get open? That's the tricky part for me.
I just don't think that's going to happen. I mean, they have – if Roman Wilson is the best you got against that secondary –
I think that's the key matchup right there, because I do think Alabama has some guys that can get open, plus Jalen Milroe scares you so much with his legs that they don't all have to get open.
Alabama's defensive backs are the only unit on this team that truly scare you, right? Yeah. That's the only position group that truly scares you, and yet here they are.
I think their edge rushers are pretty scary this year too, even with no Will Anderson. But, for most of the Saban era, Alabama has not scared you off the edge.
Right.
And lately they have.
Will Anderson was the first bone of – obviously they have had as good interior linemen throughout the eras, even when they started playing a little bit relatively less good defense. Interior has been where they're great, but Will Anderson was kind of a first of its kind, and then obviously Dallas Turner comes in behind him.
So before we turn to the Sugar Bowl, I want to ask you, Nick Saban, Jim Harbaugh, are we seeing the last of both this season, the last of one in college football, or the last of neither?
I'm about done predicting when Nick is going to hang it up. Because I actually don't think – one thing I don't think is I do not think you will see a Bobby Bowden-Long goodbye from Nick Saban. I think when he's done, he's done.
Yep.
And because of that, I think it's pretty hard to predict, obviously, now that they still are great and championship adjacent. With Harbaugh, though, there's just a feeling. There's just a feeling around this team, and I know a lot of them probably won't say it, but there's a feeling around this program that he's going to hightail it.
And there's two ways that he would have to. One is voluntary, one is involuntary, and the other piece of that is I don't know if I would feel very confident in the idea of Sherrone Moore taking over the program.
Yes.
So it wouldn't feel like it would be missing a beat if the NCAA forced you into something, or if Jim Harbaugh decided he wanted to go.
No, because Sherrone, it's funny because people are like, oh, well, Harbaugh's superpowers, in-game adjustments, and all that sort of stuff. Which, yeah, okay, sure. But Sherrone Moore was the guy in the Penn State game who said, to hell with the pass, 30 straight runs.
We got to do what we got to do. Yeah. And called a very aggressive Ohio State game.
Yes.
There were 3 plays, and I kept thinking back to the first Oregon-Washington game where Lanning got crucified for calling, going for it on 4th down 3
unjustifiably
times.
So.
Yeah, and look, Sherrone Moore did the same thing, and they got him.
Right.
And
it's great when they work. Yeah. You know what I mean?
But he did it in the correct, in the numbers bore it out, and then it also created this attitude where it's like, after they got a couple of them, you're like, okay, they're winning this game.
Yeah.
Ohio State ain't going to win this game. And so I do think the Sherrone Moore piece of it, just knowing that he's there. My thing is, whether it's Jim Harbaugh or Sherrone Moore as their head coach next year, I'm not worried about them.
Right.
They're going to be a very good program in the new Big Ten. They're going to compete for playoff berths. Based on what we saw in the Cotton Bowl, they're going to be favored over Ohio State again. I think Michigan's in a good place. Alabama, I go back to, we're talking to Kevin Steele, the defensive coordinator, and he's worked with Nick Saban at various points in his career. And so everybody's asking him, do you think Nick would hang it up if he won a national title this year? And Steele's trying to be diplomatic with the answer. And I just asked him, what the hell would he do all day?
Right.
And Kevin Steele goes, good question. Because it's not like he'd go play golf.
Yeah.
They got the car dealership.
He doesn't have.
He's not going to do that. This is what he lives for.
Yeah.
So, and I think as long as he feels like he's got the players to compete, he's going to keep doing it.
And I can't see him consulting, right?
Oh.
He's too.
He'd be really good on TV, but I think he'd be bored most of the time. There's just not enough work to be done if you're on TV. He'd be like, let's say ESPN hired him, he'd be calling up our friend Adam Rittenberg, and be like, Adam, can I be on the podcast? Yeah. I can't just sit here. So it is truly amazing. But let's move from Nick Saban to one of his former coordinators, Steve Sarkisian, who will lead Texas against Washington in the Sugar Bowl. And this is the Braylon Trice stuff out of Washington. So Braylon Trice is one of Washington's edge rushers. He's really good. he's been angry this week. Like, he does not appreciate the disrespect of the Huskies. They are once again an underdog. They were an underdog in the Pac-12 championship game. That was one of those where it was like, okay, they did beat Oregon the first time. Why are they such a big underdog in this game? And then they come out and beat Oregon again. So I think I'm done underestimating Washington.
I just think that when it comes down to it, in a high-scoring game that I think both of us expect to be within a possession, I will take the better quarterback.
Like, so you're saying Quinn Ewers is better than Penix?
No,
okay,
no.
We're
no.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
I'm just making sure.
No,
okay.
I am taking Washington.
Yeah, I am too.
What is it, 4.5?
4.5, yeah.
I am taking Washington. I think Washington's going to win this game outright. Obviously, there is a scenario where Texas wins. It's very closely held. I think this is going to be a high-scoring and close game.
The scenario where Texas wins, I think, is they're getting some good pressure up the middle. Our guy Trevondre Sweat and Byron Murphy coming up the middle and really wrecking things. Because I think if you watch the two Oregon games, Oregon got edge pressure on Penix. And there were some times where he got hurried into throws that he didn't want to make. But there were even more times where he still is throwing darts, even with a guy in his face.
So the way he releases the ball, that kind of Phillip Rivers 3/4-ish kind of arm slot, it jumps off of his hands. He can get it out quick. And so to an extent, you can negate pressure up the middle because you can get the ball out because he doesn't really have to step forward and step into throws, right? He can just kind of get it out there. So I think that's fascinating. For me, I want to know if Washington's going to try to run the ball.
I think they should try. I mean, now Oklahoma ran the ball on Texas, but it was Dylan Gabriel helping open it up.
Right. It wasn't a classic, run game. And I do think they're better running the ball this year than they were last year. But do they just abandon it, spray the ball out, and do bubble screens to get your 2 or 3 yards?
I think you got to try to run with Dylan Johnson. Now, you don't have to try to run into the teeth of the Texas defense. You can try to hit them on the edges a little bit and see what happmes.
Because they don't have a bona fide edge presence, I think that's, at least in the pass rush, that you would say is particularly good.
They're not as scary as some of the, and Oregon had very good guys on the edge, but they weren't as good up the middle as Texas is. And that's what, at the end of that last game, Washington was just blasting Oregon up the middle. And I do think Washington's offensive line, we've underrated those guys all season. So I'm very excited to see them against Texas's D-line. And I do think Washington's defense is going to be severely stressed by the amount of playmakers that Texas will throw at them because Xavier Worthy, A.D. Mitchell, JT Sanders.
That's the X factor.
The second best tight end behind Brock Bowers in the country, and he can just do so many things.
I think for me, looking at this game, Washington's defense, I don't think it's like overly good. I think if you take the 8 sides of the ball in this game, that Washington defense is number 8. But it's timely, man. They win high leverage scenarios.
Yes.
And in that way, they are complementary of their offense. Yeah. They're not giving the ball back to their offense so that the offense like Iowa can hold the ball for 46 minutes. They're giving the ball back to an offense that they know is going to score.
Yeah. And that's the thing if you're Texas is even if you score and then get a stop, like you better score again.
Yes.
Don't give it back.
Yes.
Because Washington's not going to stop. Like they may have some frustrating drives, frustrating possessions, but eventually Penix is going to find those guys. Because, Odunze, McMillan, and Polk are just – that's the best trio of receivers in the country.
And nobody has 3 DBs.
Yeah.
Nobody has 3 DBs that can match up.
Yeah, and Texas's secondary is good. Those are NFL players back there. But, yeah, I am so excited for this one because I feel like we're going to be sitting there in the middle of the third quarter being like, my face is melting off.
Yes,
I love this so much.
Yeah. It's going to be awesome. You've got 2 play callers in this game, Andy, that – do it as well as anybody.
Yeah.
And I think they do it in slightly different ways. You've got Sark, who is sort of this NFL, like press the matchup, find the donkey, and then go at him until you stop him. And then you've got Grubb, who is just this kind of mad scientist, has no tendencies. His only tendency is the lack thereof, and the aggressiveness, right? It's 1st and 10. You go deep. Somebody drops it. 2nd and 10, they don't run the ball to get into 3rd and 6.
Right.
They throw it deep again. Like they are coming at your face all day.
And Kalen DeBoer, I'm trying to think. Can you recall a situation where you were watching a Kalen DeBoer team and you thought, okay, he's doing the wrong thing here.
No, yeah,
he's making the wrong decision here.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I can remember anything. And I'm sure there are situations like that in games they had well in hand, but I feel like even going back to Fresno State, like he is making the correct choice analytically almost every time, and he understands his team very well too.
The only team who's given Penix and Washington like significant problems on defense was Arizona State. And Arizona State, I mean, they came out, put 6 guys across the line of scrimmage, and said, figure it out.
Yeah.
And Washington really wasn't over the course of the game. I just don't think Texas is going to do that from a front perspective.
Don't need to.
They'll let their front four go to work.
Yeah.
They'll let their front four go to work and try to defend with 7 that passing game.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. And if this, let's say Sark wins this one, what a full circle moment. Yeah. Against the program where he started as a head coach, where he kind of couldn't get off the plateau. And you wonder, is this guy ever going to figure it out? Is he ever going to get it? And it took, unfortunately, a pretty bad life situation to get him to evolve and emerge as a different coach. But, I mean, if he could do that, take this team to the national title game, it's a pretty big accomplishment because I don't think Texas is an easy job. I know everybody says you got all the resources, you got so many good players. If it were that easy, it would look like Alabama and Georgia. It's not. They would not have had to go through that many coaches. Even Mac Brown, who was an all-time great there, fell off. And then you got Charlie Strong, Tom Herman couldn't get it done. Like, if he can get this done, it's a big accomplishment.
Yeah, you don't see guys win a national championship often that don't do it early, right? If you get your championship, you get it early. Yeah. Jimbo got it pretty early. Urban got it pretty early. Obviously, Nick Saban got it pretty early. It's
Kirby. Yeah.
Kirby, like you get it early, and that kind of is what you are, and it kind of defines you. But Sark has been able to, in more than just the football sense, get back on the horse and have a renaissance.
Yeah, and I think what they've done, the secret sauce of what Texas has done, is they've taken those players, some of whom Tom Herman recruited, and they've turned them into NFL players. What they weren't doing at the tail end of the Mac Brown era, for the Charlie Strong era, and the Tom Herman era, they were not producing NFL players. But take Tavondre Sweat, who was not a huge recruit, not the guy you'd think of as the stereotypical Texas recruit, but they built him into this. And Bo Davis, their defensive line coach, helped build him into this. And if they can do that, plus what they can do in the portal, plus what they can do with NIL, that's when you're talking about multiple cracks at national titles.
Yeah, and there is a notion about the type of player who goes to Texas, right? Mm-hmm. The type of
entitled, athlete. He's been pampered his whole life.
And he goes to Austin because Austin's a place that isn't just about football. Like I'm talking about as a city.
Yeah.
These guys,
they don't play that way.
Right. Yeah. Like these guys are mean. These guys are nasty. These guys are angry. And you see it. And they are physical.
We had Tavondre Sweat on the show, and I asked him what his favorite bonding time with his teammates was, and he's like, meetings. You and the rest of the D-line, like, what is your favorite thing to do together?
Together? Probably meetings.
Meetings?
Honestly.
Nobody likes meetings.
No, our meetings be pretty fun.
I was like, these are some dogs right here.
And like, I think the biggest thing is this is not a Texas team that they know how to finish.
Yeah.
They have finished. And I know that they clunked a little bit through November, but they have figured out ways to get it over the line, right? Those past Texas teams lose that Iowa State game.
Oh, yeah. And the Kansas State game.
They figure out a way to lose.
Yep.
But they have finished the drill this year in a lot of different ways in a lot of different games.
Well, I am so excited about both of these games. I think this is the best set of matchups we've seen in the 14 playoff era. I'm glad the 14 playoff era is ending because I think the matchups will be better when teams win their way to the Final Four. But man, if it's got to end like this, let's do it. Let's. I don't know. I've got my picks in these. I've picked Alabama and Washington in these two games.
I am also taking Alabama and Washington.
But I have no idea what's going to really happen.
Yeah, I'm excited for
it. I love it. All right, thank you, Richard. Thank you to Richard Johnson, and I cannot wait for both of those games. They're going to be so much fun. We're going to get deeper into the Rose Bowl. We were Rose Bowl Media Day this weekend, talked to a bunch of the players. There's some players that I really wanted to talk to after this season. One who basically was the catalyst of my favorite play all year. It was the one where I was in the press box. I watched it happen live, and I'm texting everybody I know, did you see that? It was Kenneth Grant, the Michigan defensive tackle, chasing down Kadyn Allen for Penn State. And we talk about in these games, the special players, and there's a lot of special players in these semifinal games. From, on the Alabama side, you've got Kool-Aid McKinstry at corner. At Texas, you've got JT Sanders, the tight end, and Tavondre Sweat, the D tackle. At Washington, you've got those receivers. At Michigan, I think Kenneth Grant may be the biggest alien in the Rose Bowl matchup. And it's strange because Alabama almost always has the bigger aliens. But Kenneth Grant is a freak athlete and a very fun storyteller, because he explained when they finally realized where that speed had come from, and when he realized, oh, wait, I am a lot faster than other big people. It was very early in life, but it's a good story. Here's Kenneth. All right, I am here with Kenneth Grant, the author of my favorite play of the season. I was in the press box at the Penn State game, and Kadyn Allen is breaking away.
Yeah.
And it's going to be like a 12 or 13-yard gain. And here you come. Now, tell me, when you start running for him, do you think you're going to catch him?
Yeah, I kind of knew I was going to catch him, because I knew once he turned that corner, he was going to hit it hard. But I seen Rawhead came down, and I was like, oh, yeah, I got to go get him.
So Mason Graham was telling us about when he got back in the locker room after that game, like he turns on his phone, and it's just everybody talking about that, and he like tapped you on the shoulder. He's like, dude, you're famous.
Yeah.
What was that like?
I mean, it was pretty cool. I mean, a lot, like, I didn't really know about it, but a lot of my teammates, like, were on the bus and stuff in the locker room. They were telling me about it. I was just like, wow, like, it was surreal.
Now, okay, you are about 340, is that right?
Yeah.
Have you always been this fast, though? Like, has the speed come later, or was the speed always there?
Yeah, it's kind of always been there. I mean, I really noticed it. Me and my mom really noticed it. One day I missed the bus, so I had to run after it.
What?
Yeah.
How old are you?
I don't know, probably about 7, 8, something like that.
So you're like second, third grade,
Yeah.
just hauling ass after the bus.
Yeah.
Did you catch it?
Yeah, for sure. Luckily, it stopped down the street, but I still caught it.
Because they saw you.
Yeah.
So, with that, I mean, people probably look at you and they're like, okay, he's quick, can find spaces, but when you can run like that, how much of an advantage does it give you as a D tackle?
I mean, it gives you a lot of advantages, but it just always places you around the ball. So that's the biggest thing as a defender. You always want to be one of the first people around the ball and try to make the tackle.
Now, and one thing I've noticed with guys that play in the interior, like when they have to run like that, a lot of times you got to rotate out to get fresh. You guys rotate quite a bit. How much does the depth on your team help you play at your best when you're out there?
It definitely helps a lot. It's for us to be able to play all game and be efficient all game. You know, Coach Elston never wants a bad rep. So if another guy the same caliber as me that's able to come in and do the same things I'm able to do.
Does that help when you're a younger guy coming in, where you realize, okay, I'm gonna get a chance to do some stuff, but now that I'm an older guy, I don't have to feel insecure about they're gonna let some of these younger guys play too.
Yeah.
It's just everybody is gonna be good when they're out there. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, Coach Elston does a great job, you know, putting us. Coach Harbaugh even does a great job of putting a freshman in there. You know, he's very known for letting freshmen go out there and play. So, I mean, that's really all credit to him. He does a great job doing it.
So, how much fun for you is this challenge playing Alabama in the Rose Bowl?
It's definitely fun. They show a lot of great things that I'm excited to see this season. You know, kind of didn't see it this season, but they got some stuff I want to.
I mean, obviously, you want to play at the next level. When you're playing against guys you know are also going to be NFL guys, what's that like when you're preparing? Like, is it okay? This is my chance to really show what I can do.
Yeah, definitely. When the NFL scout guys come, this is one of the first games they're going to flip on. So you got to pour everything into this game, not only to this game, but every game pretty much.
So let's get back to the running. Did you run track in high school at all, or?
Nah, I didn't run track, but like I did the workouts and stuff, so I was kind of like running and stay in shape.
So how did you ever find your 4x100 team and be like, listen, I can replace any of you?
I mean, I threw for track too, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
they always make the lineman throw, but
yeah, but we always wanted to do the big man races,
Oh yeah,
the throwers, but I never got to do it.
See, I would have just thrown you in the 4x1 or the 4x400 just to mess with people.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So, what's your ideal situation? Like, are you size, weight, basically where you want to be right now, or what do you want to be ultimately?
I think this size is great for me. I mean, definitely shed a lot of excess fat, but that's really it. I think I'm out.
They keep you in shape.
Yeah, definitely.
Coach Herbert seems like he's kind of a mad scientist in the weight room. What's your favorite thing that they have you do?
I like doing the slack block. We got to balance on the styrofoam plate with one leg, and like we got to do all type of stuff like pick up med balls, pick up pieces of corn balls.
Pieces of corn?
Yeah,
you have
like real small.
So you're balancing on a block, and you have to go pick. How's that work at first for the big guys? Is that there's a lot of falling?
Nah, I mean pretty much everyone does pretty good at it. Everyone has pretty good balance, but Coach Herb definitely puts us in a lot of situations that make us great.
But that's strange, because I think most people look at you and they're like, oh, he must squat 700 pounds, and he's probably squatting and benching all that. But it feels like that sort of stuff is what separates the really good athletes from the guys who can just lift weight.
I mean, not necessarily. I mean, Coach Herb definitely entices us to do squat, but I mean,
you got to do all those too.
Yeah, definitely. But it's more about the small muscles and the small details that you don't really work on that really make you great.
How is your balance now compared to when you got to Michigan?
It's definitely better. Slack block is one of our key emphasis in the weight room. He definitely emphasized that balance. I know you guys all seen the last year the CJ touchdown where he stayed up, and that was all credit to the slack block. So it really plays out in the game.
All right, so we've seen you run people down. Is the dream an interception or a scoop and score? Like, how you think you could outrun an entire offense if you get the ball?
Yeah, I think so. If I get a little head start, if it's a pick and go, but it's gonna be close if the QB coming.
The QB's just gonna be hanging off of you. Kenneth, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you.
We go from one of the guys that is chasing Jalen Milroe to one of the guys that will be protecting Jalen Milroe. Kadyn Proctor, one of the most interesting stories on the Alabama team this year, and as a freshman, not allowed to do interviews until a situation like Rose Bowl Media Day where the whole team is available. Kadyn Proctor was the #1 offensive tackle recruit in the class of 2023. He's from Iowa. He was going to go to Iowa. He flipped to Alabama during the recruiting process. And usually when an offensive lineman goes to Alabama, they rarely just jump in and start. Cam Robinson did it, but it doesn't happen very often. Well, Kadyn Proctor was the best option at left tackle. But the thing is, early in the season, he looked like a true freshman. He looked like a guy who was playing against people who were older, more experienced. And it was a liability, for lack of a better term. But he got better and better as the season went on. And he had some great answers. Charlie Potter from Bama Online and I were talking to him about his evolution this season. And I can't wait to see what this guy becomes, because the growth as a freshman has been incredible. Here's Kadyn.
Getting a feel for the game, like, how fast it was. And I learned all my plays, before the game and before the season. So it wasn't like, it wasn't me struggling with the playbook or anything, or like playing slow. I would say just, I really don't know. It's tough to say really when it really clicked, because it just happened, Because I was playing bad one day, and then just boom, just like that, kind of got the confidence back.
What was it like whenever Tyler made the move over to left guard? I know that happened middle of the year, not the season, middle of the year. How much did that give you a little bit of boost?
It gave me a lot of a boost, because he went through the same kind of things as me, as playing as a true freshman. So he gave me a lot of insight and perspective on how he handled things and how he went over the playbook and how the older guys came in and taught him the things that he knows today. And he passed that down to me, and I'm very grateful for him.
How do you think the offensive line as a whole is?
We just gained that mean streak. We've always had it, but it's early in the season. You can't really tell by just a couple of games on how the team's going to play or how the offensive line is going to play for the whole season from just 2 games. So we have to get that experience. We have that confidence. We have that strong bond together to make it really click together. And we truly believe in each other that we can really get this done.
You talk about that main streak. Was there a moment that you noticed or anybody spoke of like, hey, we need to kind of be a little bit more intense out there?
I'd say Booker and JC definitely lead the charge in that, just from their experience and what they've gone through with that. But Seth and Dalcourt and even Jaden, came in and did their thing too. So
you said you're walking there here, but is that just a precautionary thing?
Yeah, it's just precautionary, nothing too serious.
And then lastly for me, just what did you see from this Michigan defensive line? What are you looking forward to this game?
We've seen, physical, fast defensive ends, physical defensive tackles. We give credit to them. They're a really good defense. Probably, to be considered the best defense in the nation. And, it's going to be a really fun competition. Appreciate you.
How different did it feel, going to the Georgia game versus game 1?
Like I've been saying, game 1, coming from Iowa public high school football to SEC, one of the fastest paced college football in all the world. It was just a crazy experience and a crazy feeling. But going into Georgia, I had gained that confidence, through 13 games. So it was just that confidence.
Was it a matter? Because physically, it looks like you can handle anything.
Yeah.
Was it just realizing, okay, I mentally I can deal with this and the speed of it?
Yeah. Well, it's with these grown men out here. You know what I'm saying? I'm only 18 years old. I had to come out here and figure out for myself how to fend off these guys and really truly learn how my strength, goes up against theirs and really technique goes into it. I have to use a lot of technique for, I'm powerful, but, I still got that, I'm still young and stuff.
What was that moment where you're blocking somebody and you're like, this is a grown-ass man? Was it in
moment,
practice?
Probably, practice. We have these walk-through periods, but they're really, fast-paced. It doesn't matter if you have pads on or not. We're still punching each other, hitting each other, and that's kind of where I learned was I went out there, I heard walk-through, so I'm like, all right, it's going to be a nice little slight day. I walk out there, I get punched in my chest. I look back at Coach Wolford. He's like, yep, it's real now. It's real now.
Who was delivering the punch? Do you remember?
It was Curtis Perry. I remember that vividly. Punched me.
What? And now you've been through a whole year of this. You understand it. How much easier is that part of it?
Being, like I'm saying, like the confidence level is skyrocketed. I've always had, confidence in high school too, but you just get to a different level. You kind of got to restart. That because if you say the wrong thing, some dude's gonna send a hit out on you, and you're gonna get messed up for it. So I kind of had to figure that out.
So we asked all O-line when we talked to this, what is the perfect steak?
Is that the perfect steak? Man, I'm gonna say sirloin or filet.
Okay, and how do you have it? How do you cook it?
Medium rare.
Medium. Oh, right answer. All right, that's what we needed right there.
We'll keep it on the offensive line, one left tackle to another. This next guy I met when he was a true freshman at Arizona State, playing as a 17-year-old. LaDarius Henderson was a recruit from Texas who they felt like he had a lot of athletic possibilities. They did not expect to have to play him as early as they did, but he got there and they needed him, and he played and evolved into a very good Pac-12 lineman, and then went in the portal and decided to spend that last year at Michigan, basically get the grad school education at Michigan and as a Michigan offensive lineman. and he's been a very important piece of a Michigan offensive line that's been good for a long time. And they've been able to mix in transfers and guys that they recruited out of high school very well, probably better than anyone else. Here's LaDarius talking about making that transition. We are here with LaDarius Henderson, left tackle for the Michigan Wolverines. Now, when I met you, you were a 17-year-old starting at tackle for Arizona State against grown-ass men.
Yeah.
What's it like now that you're the grown-ass man?
I mean, I gotta say it's a lot different. I mean, I'm not the weakest one out there anymore, but I feel like having that much experience definitely helps. I feel like I've kind of seen most things that could happen a lot of the times. Not many things surprise me anymore, and I like being the older guy now.
Well, and this is a program where they've been able to bring in, a bunch of guys from high school, but also they've worked in like Olu last year, you and Drake Nugent this year. Like, it feels like they've been able to bring in guys where they need them and then make a cohesive line.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, it shouldn't be very hard to do that because if you're an offensive lineman, you're definitely licking your chops to come to Michigan.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was an easy choice for me. And we have a coach like Coach Jerome Moore. I mean, who doesn't want to play for that guy? So
that's what I was going to ask, because I mean, he gets, he's your position coach, but he's also the OC. He gets thrown into the situation where he's the acting coach.
Yeah.
Did you know, I'm thinking of the Ohio State game. That's about as aggressive a called game as I've ever seen. Did you know he had that in him?
Oh, I think we all knew he had it in him. None of us ever look at Coach Moore like, oh, this is a guy that's going to coach a game scared. He's going to leave some things on the play sheet. He ain't leaving nothing on the play sheet ever. And I think that's one of the things that makes him so amazing, and like people desire to play for a guy like that because he's going all in and we're going all in.
When you were in the transfer portal and you were looking around at different destinations, what was it about Coach Moore that made you want to play for him?
Well, I really wanted to play for an offensive line coach that I felt like was similar to me and could really bring out the best in me. And I felt like he's a guy, I mean, obviously won 2 Joe Moore Awards that just knew a lot about the position and taking me to the next level, and I felt like that's just what I really wanted to do.
And I mean, it's been such a journey for you because you played early at Arizona State, you changed positions, you moved around, you really have seen everything you can see. When did you feel like, okay, I'm comfortable, I know what I'm doing?
Probably, I would say. Okay, comfortable is a tough word because I felt comfortable that freshman year.
Yeah.
Like I felt like I belonged in this game, even as a true freshman. But I didn't really feel like I had the complete grasp of the game until probably that third year.
Yeah.
That third year, I felt like, that was a great year for me. But yeah, I feel like that third year is when it really all came together.
And it's such because you're here, you're trying to play for a national title. Jaden, who was your quarterback, wins the Heisman Trophy at LSU. How strange is it that all of this has happened with that group?
It's not strange or surprising at all. Like, looking at the group that we had there, even though we only won, I think, 8 games that year, I mean, looking at what Jaden does doesn't surprise us. Ricky Pearsall, Johnny Wilson, Rashad White, just this group of guys that we had all together, and see them succeed separately. Like, I knew Jaden had that in him. We knew Ricky had that in him, and I just couldn't be more proud at seeing what my former teammates are doing, and I hope I can be on a team again with them someday.
Yeah, when Ricky makes that one catch, that was
Ricky's amazing, man.
I mean, y'all had some talent. It is, and like Brandon Ayuk was there, and Darby and Eno Benjamin.
Lucas, Eno Benjamin, Donovan West.
Yes.
Donovan West was amazing. So I mean,
he was in your class, right? And was kind of a little bit further. He was a little bit older than you, but
he was. I call him my little bro, even though he's a little older than me. He hates it. He hates it.
So how quickly, when you get to Michigan, do you bond with these guys that you're playing with?
These guys are easy to bond with. Like, you see what we're doing right now.
Yeah, you're playing. I messed up the hand. I'm sorry.
No, you're all good. I was winning, by the way. We're playing cards, and we're just a good group. We get along well, and I feel like we're all just social extroverts that just get to hang out together,
Well, and when Zach goes down in the Ohio State game, it feels like, you move Carson over, Trente comes in. It didn't feel like you lost much there.
I mean, I'm not going to discredit our captain and our All-American player. We lost. I mean, you never want to lose a guy like Zach Zentu. I mean, I believe he's the best right guard, the best guard in the country, and that's my humble opinion. But
that could have been a situation where it's a disaster.
It could have been.
You score a touchdown on the next play.
Yeah, but that's just credit to like our offense and the way we practice and our next man up mentality.
Yeah.
And it's just the emotions were so high. We're like, we got to get this done for him.
Yeah.
The rest of that game was for Zach Zenter. So.
And you've had such like, you've been dinged up. You lose Zach. Drake's been dinged up. JJ said the other day. Do you feel like now everybody's as healthy as they can be going into this one? Or?
Yeah, having this month of preparation and like rehab and prehab, all the habs, just it's been much needed for us, and I feel like right now we're feeling really good. So
all right, we got to talk about the kicks because you are you're a Jordan school, but you're wearing the dunks.
Yeah.
Your wife makes custom shoes.
Yep.
She makes it. She does the My Cause My Cleats.
Yep.
Cleats for folks in the NFL. Like, how do you get into that?
She's okay. First off, I gotta start by saying she's super talented. She's an amazing artist, and she's probably one of the top people now in the game when it comes to custom shoe and cleat designing. And she's just so talented. Like, it blows my mind still. And I've been seeing her do it for years.
Yeah.
And like, her name's Jada from the block, by the way. You got.
We're gonna be running her Instagram.
You gotta run her Instagram, and you won't regret it. But you gotta see some shoes she made for me last week for Christmas. I think it's some of the best shoes I've ever seen in my life.
That's an unbelievable gift when someone can give you custom shoes.
Yeah, that they made.
Oh,
yeah.
And now, so y'all met in high school,
Yep.
and that's unbelievable. So LaDarius and I were talking before. I got married at 22. He got married at 21. Like, I never thought I would, and I'm here 22 years later, and we're still kicking. So
it's the best.
Yeah.
I mean, like. I know you probably don't want to hear about love stories when it comes to football
you do
right now.
Absolutely, we do.
But she's awesome. I mean, like you said, when you know, and I couldn't be happier.
Well, LaDarius, congratulations, and thank you so much, and good luck.
Thank you so much.
And of course, we weren't going to let Alabama Media Day go by without talking to Terrion Arnold. Terrion Arnold was our favorite interview this entire season. When he came on the show, just lit the whole place up. We had to talk to him about the LANK pop-up shop. If you've been listening to the show, you know about LANK. LANK is the brand that Terrion Arnold and Jalen Milroe created. Let all the naysayers know that's what it stands for. They got the hand sign. I think the Louisville people probably feel like there's a little bit of theft there, but I don't think anybody's going to complain too much. You saw Jalen Hurts wearing a LANK shirt the other day. They have really turned this into something, and now it's something that is benefiting all the Alabama players, and Terrion explained why he did that. All right, we got Terrion Arnold, co-proprietor of the LANK brand, right? You and Jalen Milroe.
Yeah.
And so you got a pop-up shop in Pasadena now?
Yeah, we do.
So what can people get there?
People could go out there. You can get your shirts. You can get our jerseys. You could go out there and even take a picture next to, as they would say, what is it called? Like the little billboard?
Oh,
the
little
cut-ups.
standee?
Yeah, the cut-ups.
Wait, they got one of you?
Yeah, they got one of me going like this.
What's
and
that?
they got one of Miro.
What's that like? Did you get to approve it?
Yeah, I mean, I walked in there. I saw they took Jalen Miro and they took us there yesterday. So, I mean, when we saw it, I was like, wow.
So are you smiling? Like smiling, or is it like looking all
it's
hard?
Fine. It's a little bit like this.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, you know.
So I get the real one.
Yeah, you get the real one.
All
You
right.
get the real one.
So when y'all came up with this, you said it was in the locker room. You were talking about it and let all the naysayers know. Did you think it would take the world by storm?
Honestly, yeah. I didn't think it was going to take the world by storm as big as it is, but I mean, obviously you're at Bama, and people know it's pros and cons of being at Bama. When you're at Bama, anything you do that's bad, it's going to blow up. Anything that you do that's good, it's going to semi-blow up, but it's not going to blow up as much as it would if it's bad. So, I mean, with us, even week 2, being here and people not expecting us to be here in the predicament, the situations that we're in, we knew from that, the growth and stuff, it was going to take the world by storm because that's how our season's been. We've been going out there on the daily and been letting all the naysayers know.
When you're in Tuscaloosa, do people just say, like, you yell LANK at you across?
Yeah.
That's nice.
Like, I'll be in class, they'll be like, hey, LANK. Or they'll be like, man, on LANK. I'll be like, on LANK. On let a naysayer know. Hey, you got it. You got it. So,
it does sound good. It's like on tilt, on LANK.
Yeah.
Okay. I got to figure out how that works, but
I mean, I do too. But I mean, I just let them. I let them have
listen,
their way.
as long as they're buying the shirts, it don't matter.
You're right. Hey, as long as you're supporting the team, and even with that right there, like the guys at Athletes Threat, they done a great job because not only when you go out there At first, they would go out there and they would support Jalen and I, but now when you could go and support the team, because we're a team, we're a brotherhood, we bought in this together, and this is how our season has been, you're making NIL successful for everybody, and I feel like that's what NIL.
So this is helping other guys.
This is for everybody.
Oh wow!
It's been like when you go to the pop-up shop and you go out there and support us, it supports the whole team.
Wow! How'd you guys decide that?
The guys at Athletes Thread and obviously my guy Trip Powell. He's our kind of like our NIL collective. The head over that. He did a great job. Had a great idea about it. And I mean, Jalen and I being guys who are unselfish, and I mean honestly, if we didn't make any money off of it and our teammates could benefit off of it, we would want that.
Yeah.
Like I'm one of those guys. As long as my brothers are eating, I'm okay. I'm okay with being in the background.
How much closer has this group gotten as this year's gone on? You talk about back in week 2 and the difference between then and now. Where are you guys now?
We're hungrier. We're fierce competitors, and we've weathered storms. Obviously, when you're playing in the SEC, you already have to be battle tested, and you're going to have a lot of games, a lot of different circumstances. But I mean, you have to keep fighting. Even with Auburn, 4th and 31, that's a testament to how our season has been. When everybody has doubted us, when all the naysayers have counted us out, we continue to go out there and lank them. Night in, night out, day in, day out, morning in, morning out.
4th and 31, you're not on the field. What are you doing as you watch that?
I'm going like this. I got lank going on like this, and I got my head down because I don't want to see it. But I just know something going to happen. Like, before Jalen, they called a timeout. When he came off the field, I said, hey, Jay, you got to go out there and lank. And he looked at me, and he was like this. I was all right. I know what time it is. So
it's Terrion Arnold. He's on LANK at the Rose Bowl.
Yes,
We're going to
sir.
figure out what on LANK means. But
yes, sir. Big lank, not the little one.
Thank you, Terrion. Appreciate it. If Terrion Arnold talking about 4th and 31 does not get you pumped up and ready to watch these games, I don't know what will. We're here. The semifinals are Monday. Have a happy New Year. Be safe tonight. Kiss somebody you love. We'll talk to you after the games.